The docking bay of Sentinel Prime hummed with activity as ships from across the galaxy came and went. The station was enormous, larger than some moons, and it served as the meeting place for the Galactic Coalition. Every species that mattered had representatives here, and today, Earth was sending its delegation for the first time. Lieutenant Jake Morrison stood at attention as the transport shuttle settled onto the landing platform. He wore his combat armor, the standard-issue gear that human soldiers had used for the past decade. The armor was bulky and made of reinforced steel plates with ceramic inserts. It was scratched and dented in several places, showing that Jake had seen real combat. To him, it was just equipment. To the aliens watching his arrival, it looked ancient. Jake stepped off the shuttle and immediately noticed the stairs. Dozens of alien species walked through the docking bay, and many of them stopped to look at the human. Some pointed. A few made sounds that might have been laughter. Jake kept his face neutral and continued walking toward the security checkpoint. At the checkpoint, a tall reptilian creature in a sleek uniform scanned Jake's credentials. The creature's name tag identified him as Security Chief Darrow, a Saurine. Darrow looked at Jake's armor with what might have been curiosity or pity. It was hard to tell with alien faces. "Welcome to Sentinel Prime, Lieutenant Morrison," Darrow said in perfect English, translated by the device in Jake's ear. "You will need to attend the security briefing in 1 hour. Deck 7, Conference Room 3. Jake nodded and made his way to the human quarters. The station's interior was clean and modern, with smooth walls that seemed to glow with their own light. Everything looked advanced and efficient. Jake felt like a caveman who had wandered into a museum. The human delegation quarters were modest but comfortable. Jake found his assigned room and removed his helmet. He was 32 years old with short brown hair and tired eyes. He had served in the Pacific conflict and the border wars before joining the space program. Fighting was what he knew. An hour later, Jake entered the conference room for the security briefing. The room was filled with representatives from various species. Most wore armor or protective suits that looked far more advanced than his. Energy shields shimmered around some of them. Others had biosynthetic suits that seemed to be alive, shifting and adapting to their movements. Jake found a seat near the back and tried to be inconspicuous. "It did not work. Is that really what humans wear into combat?" a voice said loudly. The room grew quiet. Jake looked up to see a female warrior standing near the front. She was tall and muscular with blue-gray skin and golden eyes. Her armor was beautiful, made of some kind of dark material that seemed to absorb light. Energy fields flickered across its surface. "Commander Kiva Tresh," someone whispered. "Valkorian Empire, one of their best warriors." Kiva walked closer to Jake, her boots clicking on the floor. She circled him slowly, examining his armor like someone might examine a broken machine. "This is what you wear? This metal and ceramic? Do humans not have energy shields? Plasma resistance? Anything modern?" Jake remained seated and said nothing. He had learned long ago that responding to mockery only made it worse. "I have seen better protection on cargo containers," Kiva continued. Several aliens in the room made sounds that translated as laughter. "How did your species survive long enough to reach the stars with such primitive equipment?" "This is scrap metal held together with hope." A Valkorian warrior sitting near Kiva joined in. "Perhaps they simply never encountered real danger on their world. Maybe Earth is a soft place that produces soft warriors." More laughter. Jake's jaw tightened slightly, but he still said nothing. His hands rested calmly on his knees. There was something about his stillness that was different from submission. It was the stillness of a predator waiting for the right moment. Security Chief Darrow entered the room and the laughter stopped. The Saurine moved to the front and activated a holographic display. "We have a serious situation," Darrow said. "The Crimson Swarm has been spotted in this sector. They have raided 3 supply convoys in the past 2 weeks. We believe they may attempt to strike at this station." The hologram showed a fleet of ragged ships. The Crimson Swarm was notorious throughout the galaxy. They were pirates who took no prisoners and left no survivors. Their tactics were brutal and effective. "The Swarm uses electromagnetic pulse weapons," Darrow continued. "They disable advanced systems before boarding. They are dangerous and well organized." The Saurine's eyes swept across the room. "I am assigning mixed species patrol teams for the next week. You will work together to secure critical sections of the station." Darrow began reading off team assignments. When he reached Jake's name, he paired him with Commander Kiva Tresh's squad. Kiva immediately stood up. "Chief Darrow, I must protest," Kiva said firmly. My team is elite. We do not need a human slowing us down with his primitive gear. Darrow's reptilian face showed no emotion. The assignment stands, Commander. Cultural exchange is part of our mission here. You will learn to work together. Kiva looked like she wanted to argue further, but Darrow's tone made it clear the discussion was over. She sat down with obvious displeasure. After the briefing, Jake made his way to the armory to check his weapons. The Valkorian squad was already there, inspecting their advanced plasma rifles and energy weapons. Kiva watched as Jake opened his equipment case. Inside were simple kinetic weapons, a rifle that fired metal bullets using chemical propellant, a pistol of similar design, a combat knife made of carbon steel. To the Valkorians, these were museum pieces. You cannot be serious, Kiva said. You plan to defend this station with weapons that belong in a history display? Jake checked his rifle's action, his movements practiced and efficient. They work, he said simply. It was the first time he had spoken directly to her. They work, Kiva repeated mockingly. Energy weapons work better. Plasma weapons work better. Practically anything works better than what you are carrying. Jake loaded a magazine into his rifle and chambered a round. The mechanical sound echoed in the armory. Maybe, he said. We'll see. Kiva shook her head in disgust. Come, we begin patrols in 20 minutes. Try not to get yourself killed on the first day, human. The paperwork would be annoying. As the Valkorians left the armory, one of them muttered something in their language. Jake's translator caught it. At least when he dies, we can use his armor as scrap metal. Jake finished his equipment check in silence. He had been mocked before. He had been underestimated before. It never bothered him much. People who underestimated you tended to learn their mistake eventually. Sometimes they lived long enough to apologize. Sometimes they did not. He slung his rifle over his shoulder and followed the Valkorian squad. The patrol was going to be interesting. The next 3 days passed without incident. Jake patrolled the station's corridors with Kiva's squad, maintaining a professional distance. The Valkorians continued to mock his equipment, though their comments became less frequent. Jake suspected they were simply bored with the joke. He used the time to observe them. The Valkorians were impressive warriors by any standard. They moved with confidence and discipline. Their armor was indeed remarkable, with energy shields that could deflect most weapons fire. Their plasma rifles could cut through steel doors. They were soldiers who had trained their entire lives for combat. But Jake noticed something else. They relied completely on their equipment. When a shield generator flickered during a routine check, the warrior wearing it became visibly nervous. When someone's plasma rifle needed recalibration, they seemed almost helpless until it was fixed. They were dangerous because of their technology, not in spite of it. On the 4th day, everything changed. Jake was in the human quarters when the alarms began. The sound was loud and urgent, echoing through every corridor of the massive station. His translator device announced the problem in a calm, automated voice. Alert, the station is under attack. All personnel report to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Jake grabbed his rifle and armor, moving with practice speed. He had his gear on in under 90 seconds and was running toward his assigned patrol section. Before most people had figured out what was happening, the corridors were filling with confused aliens, many of them civilians who had never experienced combat. When Jake reached the patrol section, he found Kiva's squad already assembled. They looked ready for battle, their weapons charged and their shields active. Kiva saw Jake and nodded curtly. Whatever mockery she had planned was forgotten in the face of real danger. The Crimson Swarm came out of nowhere, Kiva said quickly. They were hiding in a debris field. 30 ships, maybe more. They hit our defensive grid with electromagnetic pulse weapons. As if to emphasize her words, the lights flickered. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation wash over him. His armor's electronic system sparked and died. The display inside his helmet went dark. Around him, the Valkorian's energy shields began to flicker like dying flames. No, one of the Valkorian warriors said. No, the shields are failing. Kiva looked at her own shield generator in disbelief. The energy field around her armor sputtered and vanished. She pressed buttons on her wrist control, but nothing happened. The EMP is stronger than we expected. It is affecting everything. Jake reached up and tapped his helmet. The electronics were dead, but the armor itself was just metal and ceramic. It still worked fine. His rifle had no electronic components at all. It was purely mechanical. He checked the action and found it functioning perfectly. My weapons are dead, another Valkorian said, panic creeping into his voice. The plasma rifle needs power. It is just dead weight now. Around the station, similar scenes were playing out. The coalition forces, with all their advanced technology, found themselves suddenly vulnerable. Weapons that required power cells were useless. Energy shields were gone. Even some of the biosynthetic armor began to fail as its electronic control systems died. The Crimson Swarm knew exactly what they were doing. They had planned this attack carefully. Within minutes of the EMP strike, boarding pods began slamming into the station's hull. The pirates were coming, and they were coming fast. Jake and Kiva's squad took position in a maintenance corridor near one of the breach points. They could hear the sound of cutting torches as the pirates burned through the hull. Kiva tried her plasma rifle one more time, but it remained dead. She threw it aside in frustration and drew a backup weapon, a simple kinetic pistol that she probably never expected to use. The Valkorians looked nervous now. They were warriors, but they were warriors who had trained with specific equipment. Take that equipment away and they were like pilots without planes. The hull breach opened with a hiss of escaping atmosphere. Emergency force fields activated to contain the pressure loss, but now there was a hole in the wall, and pirates began pouring through. They were a mixed group of different species, all wearing heavy armor and carrying kinetic weapons. They knew the coalition forces would be helpless. The first pirate through the breach spotted Kiva's squad and opened fire. The Valkorians scattered, looking for cover. One of them was too slow. Bullets tore through his disabled armor and he went down, golden blood spreading across the floor. Kiva returned fire with her pistol, but she was not trained for this kind of weapon. Her shots went wide. Another Valkorian fell, hit in the shoulder. The squad was pinned down, taking fire from an entrenched enemy position. Without their shields and plasma weapons, they were outmatched. Jake had been watching from a position near the rear of the formation. He had said nothing, done nothing, just observed. Now as the pirates advanced and Kiva's squad began to break, he made a decision. He reached up and began removing his armor. The chest plate came off first. Jake set it aside calmly as if he had all the time in the world. Then the arm guards. Then the leg sections. Piece by piece, he stripped away the bulky protective gear. Kiva saw what he was doing and stared in shock. "What are you doing?" she shouted over the sound of gunfire. "Have you lost your mind?" Jake did not answer. He removed the last piece of armor and stood in just his tactical vest and combat fatigues. He looked smaller now, lighter, but there was something in his eyes that made Kiva go quiet. It was a cold, focused intensity that she had never seen before. Under the armor, Jake carried his weapons on a tactical harness. His rifle hung from a sling across his chest. His pistol was in a hip holster. His knife was strapped to his left shoulder. Everything was within easy reach. Everything was simple and mechanical. He checked his rifle one more time, then looked at Kiva. "Stay here," he said simply. Before she could respond, Jake moved. Without the weight of the armor, he was fast. He flowed down the corridor like water, his movements smooth and economical. The first pirate to see him coming fired a burst of bullets. Jake was already sliding low beneath the line of fire. He closed the distance in seconds. His knife came out in a smooth motion and found the gap in the pirate's armor at the neck joint. The pirate made a gurgling sound and collapsed. Jake took the body's momentum and used it as a shield, dropping behind it as two more pirates opened fire. From behind the body, Jake's rifle came up. 3 shots fired so quickly they almost sounded like one. 2 pirates fell, each with a single bullet hole in their head. Jake had aimed for the narrow gap between helmet and chest armor, a target most people would not even try for. He was up and moving again before the bodies hit the ground. A pirate lunged at him with a vibroblade, a knife that vibrated at high frequency to cut through armor. Jake twisted, letting the blade pass inches from his body, and drove his elbow into the pirate's throat. The pirate dropped, choking. Kiva and her squad watched in stunned silence. This was not how warriors fought. This was something else entirely. This was savage, efficient violence that belonged to a different time. Jake moved through the boarding party like he was born to this, like combat was as natural to him as breathing. A large pirate, easily twice Jake's size, managed to grab him. The alien was strong, enhanced with combat drugs, and he lifted Jake off the ground. It should have been over. But Jake did not panic. He drove his thumb into the pirate's eye, then brought his knee up into the creature's throat when it flinched. As the grip loosened, Jake twisted free and snapped the pirate's neck with a precise strike. Within 2 minutes, 8 pirates were dead or dying. The rest of the boarding party began to fall back, suddenly uncertain. They had expected helpless coalition forces with dead equipment. They had not expected this. Jake stood in the corridor, breathing calmly, his rifle ready. His clothes were spattered with alien blood. His face was completely calm, as if he had just finished a routine training exercise. Kiva found her voice. "What are you?" she whispered. Jake glanced back at her. "Just a soldier," he said. News of what happened in the maintenance corridor spread quickly through the station's communication network. Even with the EMP damage, word of mouth traveled fast. The Crimson Swarm had attacked expecting easy prey. Instead, they had encountered something unexpected. A human who fought like nothing the galaxy had seen before. Jake did not wait for orders. He moved to the next breach point, and Kiva's squad followed him. They had stopped questioning. They had stopped mocking. Now they simply watched and learned, trying to understand what they were seeing. At the second breach, more pirates were pouring through. Jake assessed the situation quickly. The corridor was wide, with several side passages. The pirates had set up a defensive position using equipment they had brought with them. It was a strong position, one that would normally require heavy weapons to break. Jake turned to Kiva. "I need a distraction. Just noise and movement. Can you do that?" Kiva nodded, still processing everything she had witnessed. "We can do that." "Give me 30 seconds, then make noise," Jake said. Then he disappeared into a side passage. Kiva counted down and then opened fire with her kinetic pistol, joined by her remaining squad members. The shots were wild, not meant to hit anything, just meant to draw attention. The pirates returned fire, focusing on the Valkorian position. They did not see Jake until it was too late. He had used the side passages to flank them, moving through the station's maintenance tunnels. These tunnels were narrow, too small for someone in full armor. But Jake was not wearing armor anymore. He emerged behind the pirate position and opened fire. His shots were precise and controlled. Each bullet found its target. Pirates fell before they even understood where the attack was coming from. Those who turned to face him found themselves looking down the barrel of Jake's rifle in the split second before he pulled the trigger. One pirate, faster than the others, managed to draw a weapon and fire. The shot grazed Jake's shoulder, tearing through his tactical vest and drawing blood. Jake did not even flinch. He shot the pirate twice and kept moving. Within a minute, the defensive position was broken. The surviving pirates retreated in disorder, leaving their dead behind. Kiva and her squad moved up, stepping carefully through the carnage. One of the Valkorians, a warrior named Tren, looked at Jake with something like fear. "You are injured," Tren said, pointing at Jake's shoulder. Jake glanced at the wound. Blood was soaking through his shirt, but the bleeding was not severe. "It's fine," he said. He pulled out a medical kit from his tactical vest and sprayed the wound with a foam that sealed it. The entire process took maybe 10 seconds. Then he was ready to move again. "How are you doing this?" Kiva asked. "You have no shields, no advanced weapons. You are not even wearing armor. Yet you fight like you cannot be stopped." Jake reloaded his rifle, his hands moving automatically. "Armor slows me down," he said. "And I do not need advanced weapons. These work fine." "But you are so exposed," Kiva insisted. "One shot could kill you." "One shot could kill anyone," Jake replied. "Shields fail. Armor gets penetrated. The only real defense is not being where the bullet is going to be." It was such a simple concept, but none of the Valkorians had ever thought about it that way. They had always relied on their equipment to keep them safe. The idea of avoiding damage through movement and awareness was foreign to them. Throughout the station, other humans from Earth's delegation were having similar experiences. A man named Greg Hunter had been trapped in the docking bay when the attack started. He shed his armor and used maintenance equipment to set traps for the boarding parties. By the time coalition reinforcements arrived, Greg had stopped an entire pirate squad using nothing but improvised explosives and a welding torch. A woman named Lisa Banks found herself defending a group of civilian aliens who were trapped in a conference room. She removed her armor and fought with just a pistol and a fire extinguisher. The pirates who tried to breach that conference room found themselves facing a small, determined human who seemed utterly unconcerned with her own safety. 3 pirates died trying to get through that door. The rest decided to find an easier target. Commander Darrow, watching the battle from the damaged command center, saw a pattern emerging. Every human on the station had adapted to the situation. They had removed their armor, switched to simple weapons, and started fighting with a brutality that shocked the other coalition species. It was as if the EMP attack had not weakened the humans at all. If anything, it had freed them. "Get me Lieutenant Morrison," Darrow ordered. "I need to speak with him immediately." Jake received the communication request while clearing another section of corridor. He accepted it while keeping his rifle trained on a side passage. "Morrison here. Lieutenant, this is Security Chief Darrow. I am reorganizing our defense. I need you to take command of a strike team. We must retake the main command center. The pirates have captured it and killed the officers inside." Jake considered this. How many pirates? At least 20, possibly more. Their leader, Vrex the Render, is with them. He is extremely dangerous. "I will need volunteers," Jake said. "People who can fight without their fancy equipment." "I will send you every human on the station," Darrow said. "Is that sufficient?" Jake smiled slightly. It was not a pleasant smile. "That will work." 20 minutes later, Jake stood in a secured corridor with 11 other humans. They had all removed their armor. They all carried simple kinetic weapons. They looked like soldiers from Earth's past, but there was nothing primitive about the way they moved or thought. Jake knew most of them. Greg Hunter was there, still smelling of smoke from his improvised explosives. Lisa Banks had a bruised face but clear eyes. Pete Crawford, a demolitions expert, carried a bag of equipment he had salvaged from the station's maintenance areas. "The command center is 3 levels up," Jake briefed them. "It is heavily fortified. The pirates have barricaded the main entrances and they will see us coming from any normal approach, so we are not going to use a normal approach." He pulled up a schematic of the station on a portable display. "We are going to cut through the hull, go outside, and breach through the observation windows. It will be dangerous. We will be exposed to vacuum for approximately 2 minutes, but they will not expect it." One of the humans, a woman named Rachel Moore, looked at the plan and nodded. "That's completely insane. I like it. Anyone who wants out can leave now," Jake said. "No shame in it. This is going to be ugly." No one moved. They were all volunteers, and they had all made their choice. Kiva had been listening from nearby. She stepped forward. "I am coming with you." Jake looked at her. "Your armor does not work anymore. Your weapons are dead. You will be a liability." "Then I will be a liability," Kiva said firmly. "But I am coming. My warriors are coming too. You saved our lives. We will help you save this station." Jake studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Stay close and do what I tell you." "No arguments." "No arguments," Kiva agreed. The strike team made their way to the hull access point. Pete Crawford had already set up cutting equipment. "Give me 5 minutes," he said cheerfully. "I will have us a nice door to the outside." While Pete worked, Jake checked everyone's emergency air supply. They had small oxygen tanks that would last about 10 minutes in vacuum, more than enough for what they needed to do. The hull breach opened with a hiss. Beyond it was empty space and stars. Jake could see the command center's observation windows 300 meters away. It looked impossible. It looked suicidal. Jake clipped a maneuvering thruster to his belt and stepped out into the void. The other humans followed without hesitation. Kiva took a deep breath and jumped after them, trusting these strange warriors who fought like demons and feared nothing. In the silence of space, the strike team began their assault. Moving through open space was different from anything Kiva had experienced. There was no up or down, no solid ground beneath her feet. Just the endless void and the distant stars. The humans moved through it like they had done this 100 times before, using their small thrusters to adjust course. Jake led the way, his movements efficient and controlled. He had calculated the trajectory carefully. They would approach the observation windows from below, where the pirates would not think to watch. It was a blind spot in their defenses. The command center grew larger as they approached. Through the windows, Kiva could see movement inside, pirates moving around, secure in their captured position. They had no idea what was coming for them. Jake signaled for everyone to take position around the windows. Pete Crawford moved forward with his bag of equipment. Inside the bag were shaped charges, small explosive devices that he had built from maintenance supplies. They were crude by military standards, but they would do the job. Pete placed the charges around the window frame with practiced precision. He worked quickly, his movements sure despite the awkward environment. When he was done, he gave Jake a thumbs up and retreated to a safe distance. Jake held up his hand, counting down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The charges detonated in silence. In the vacuum of space, there was no sound, just a flash of light. The observation windows shattered and the command center's atmosphere began venting into space. Kiva saw pirates inside being pulled toward the breach, stumbling and falling as the air rushed out. The humans did not wait. They poured through the broken windows, weapons ready. The pirates were scrambling for emergency suits, caught completely unprepared. They had expected attacks from the corridors, not from outside the station. Jake shot the first pirate he saw, then the second. The others followed his lead, moving through the command center with deadly efficiency. The lack of atmosphere actually worked in their favor. The pirates could not breathe, could not call for help, could not organize a defense. Kiva came through the window last, her lungs burning as her oxygen supply fed air through her emergency mask. She saw a pirate reaching for a weapon and shot him with her kinetic pistol. The recoil was strange in zero gravity, pushing her backward slightly. The command center was large with multiple levels and workstations. The pirates had fortified the main entrance, placing barricades and heavy weapons. All of that firepower was pointed the wrong way. The human assault came from behind, turning their defensive position into a trap. Within 2 minutes, half the pirates were dead or incapacitated. The survivors fell back to a central area where their leader was positioned. Vrex the Render stood over 2 meters tall, his body more machine than flesh. He was a cyborg mercenary, infamous throughout the galaxy for his brutality and combat effectiveness. Vrex had sealed himself in a personal force field when the atmosphere vented. Now he stood in his protective bubble, watching his forces crumble, his mechanical eyes focused on Jake, calculating threat levels and combat probabilities. "Humans," Vrex said, his voice transmitted through a speaker system. "Interesting. I had heard you were primitive." "This does not seem primitive." Jake did not respond. He was assessing Vrex's defenses, looking for weaknesses. The force field was powerful, probably strong enough to stop any handheld weapon. The cyborg's body was heavily armored and bristling with built-in weapons. This was not going to be easy. "My sensors indicate you have no energy shields, no plasma weapons, no advanced combat enhancements," Vrex continued. "Yet you fight well. How curious. Perhaps I will take one of you alive for study." A cannon emerged from Vrex's arm, a massive weapon that looked like it could punch through a ship's hull. He aimed at the nearest human, a young woman named Claire Bennett. Claire saw it coming and tried to move, but in the zero-gravity environment, she could not get out of the way fast enough. The cannon fired. The blast caught Claire in the chest and tore through her body. She did not even have time to scream. Her body tumbled backward, lifeless. Jake's reaction was immediate and terrifying. He launched himself at Vrex with complete disregard for his own safety. The cyborg fired again, but Jake twisted in midair, the blast passing centimeters from his body. Other humans opened fire on Vrex, their bullets bouncing harmlessly off his force field. Jake landed against a wall and pushed off, using it to change direction. He was moving in 3 dimensions now, making himself a difficult target. Vrex tried to track him, but Jake's movements were unpredictable, chaotic. He grabbed Claire's floating body as he passed and used her armor as an improvised shield. The armor caught the next blast from Vrex's cannon. The force knocked Jake backward, but he used the momentum to close the distance. He was inside the force field now, in close quarters with a cyborg that outweighed him 3-1. Vrex tried to grab Jake with his mechanical arms, but Jake was too fast. He ducked under the grab and drove his combat knife into a joint in Vrex's hip. The blade found a gap in the armor and pierced something vital. Hydraulic fluid sprayed out. "Impossible," Vrex said, his mechanical voice showing something like surprise. "You should not be able to harm me." Jake did not waste breath on responses. He was already moving to his next target, looking for another weak point. Vrex's arm cannon swiveled, trying to draw a bead on Jake at point-blank range. Jake grabbed the arm and twisted, using his entire body weight to force it off target. The cannon fired, the blast hitting Vrex's own leg. The cyborg stumbled, his balance systems disrupted. Jake pressed his advantage, scrambling up Vrex's body like he was climbing a machine. His knife found the cyborg's primary power coupling at the base of the neck. Vrex understood what Jake was trying to do. "You cannot disable me. My backup systems will activate. I am too valuable to my employers to be stopped by one primitive human." Jake saw an emergency oxygen canister on the wall, part of the station's safety equipment. He pulled it free with one hand while holding onto Vrex with the other. Then he jammed the canister into the gap his knife had created in Vrex's armor. "I am not trying to disable you," Jake said. It was the first time he had spoken since the assault began. He twisted the canister's valve to full release and kicked off from Vrex's body, propelling himself away. Vrex had a moment to understand what was about to happen. The oxygen, released into his internal systems, mixed with the electrical components and superheated fluids. The resulting explosion was not large, but it was enough. Vrex's upper body came apart from the inside, metal and circuitry scattering through the zero-gravity environment. The remaining pirates saw their leader destroyed and immediately surrendered. They threw down their weapons and put their hands up, terrified of what else these humans might do. Jake floated in the middle of the command center, breathing hard. Blood from his shoulder wound had spread across his shirt, and he had new cuts and bruises from the fight with Vrex. But he was alive, and the command center was retaken. Emergency crews arrived minutes later, led by Security Chief Darrow. They began securing the area and taking the pirates into custody. Medical teams moved through, treating the wounded. They found Claire's body and recovered it carefully, with the respect due to a fallen warrior. Kiva approached Jake slowly. He was securing his weapons, his movements automatic despite his exhaustion. She wanted to say something, anything, but words felt inadequate. 23 humans on this station, she finally said. 23, and you stopped an entire pirate fleet. You fought without armor, without advanced weapons, without any of the technology the rest of us depend on. How is this possible? Jake finished checking his rifle and looked at her. It is what we do, he said simply. It is what we have always done. But why remove the armor? Kiva asked. Why fight without protection? Jake considered the question. The armor is useful. It stops some damage, but it is also slow, heavy, and restrictive. In a fight like this, where speed and adaptation matter more than protection, the armor is a disadvantage, so we took it off. You trusted your skill more than your equipment, Kiva said, understanding dawning. We trusted ourselves, Jake corrected. The equipment is just tools. Tools break. Tools fail. We do not. Around them, the other humans were gathering. They looked tired and battered, but unbroken. They had lost Claire, and that hurt, but they had completed their mission. The station was secure. The pirates were defeated. Darrow approached, his reptilian features showing something like awe. Lieutenant Morrison, I am recommending you and your team for the Coalition's highest honor. What you accomplished today will be studied for years. Jake nodded but did not smile. We did what needed to be done, sir. Nothing more? Nothing more, Darrow repeated quietly. Yes, of course. But everyone there knew it was more than that. The humans had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before. They had shown that the most dangerous weapon was not technology. It was the warrior who wielded it. The aftermath of the battle took days to sort through. Repair crews worked around the clock to fix the damage from the Crimson Swarm's attack. The station's systems slowly came back online as engineers bypassed the EMP damage. Bodies were recovered and identified. Survivors were treated and debriefed. Throughout the station, the humans became something of a phenomenon. Aliens from dozens of species watched them with a mixture of respect and unease. The story of what happened had spread quickly, growing with each retelling. Some versions were exaggerated, but the truth was impressive enough without embellishment. Jake spent most of his time in the human quarters, writing reports and avoiding the attention. He had never been comfortable with recognition. He was a soldier, and soldiers did their jobs. That was all there was to it. On the third day after the attack, Kiva requested a meeting with him. They met in a quiet observation deck away from the crowds and activity. The deck looked out on empty space with stars stretching to infinity in every direction. Kiva arrived wearing a new set of armor, her damaged equipment having been replaced. The energy shields hummed softly around her, functional again now that the station's power grid was restored. She looked like the confident warrior Jake had first met, but something had changed in her eyes. I came to apologize, Kiva said without preamble. I mocked you. I mocked your equipment and your people. I was wrong. Jake stood looking out at the stars. You were not wrong about the equipment, he said. Our gear is primitive compared to yours. That part was accurate. But I missed the point, Kiva said. The equipment does not matter as much as I thought. You proved that. Equipment matters, Jake corrected. But it is not everything. It is a tool. We are the weapon. Kiva moved to stand beside him. For a long moment, they both just looked at the stars. Finally, she asked the question that had been bothering her since the battle. Where did you learn to fight like that? What kind of training produces warriors who can do what you did? Jake was quiet for a while before answering. Do you know anything about Earth? He asked. Very little, Kiva admitted. The Coalition files say it is a Class 7 world. Standard gravity, oxygen atmosphere, water rich. Nothing unusual. The classification system does not capture it, Jake said. Earth is not just a habitable world. It is a death world. Almost everything on our planet evolved to kill and eat everything else. Predators hunting prey, prey developing defenses, an endless arms race that has been going on for hundreds of millions of years. Kiva listened, her attention focused completely on Jake's words. Humans are part of that system, Jake continued. We evolved as hunters, persistence hunters. We would chase prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. We learned to work in groups, to communicate, to plan and adapt. We learned to make tools because we did not have claws or fangs. We learned to fight because everything on our world wanted to kill us. But that was your past, Kiva said. You are civilized now. You have technology and laws and culture. Jake finally turned to look at her. Civilization is new. We have had cities for maybe 10,000 years. We have had peace for maybe 100. Before that, it was warfare, constant brutal warfare. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation. Humans killing humans for resources, territory, ideology, or sometimes just because we could. That sounds horrific, Kiva said. It was, Jake agreed. But it also shaped us. Every human child grows up learning about conflict. We study it in our schools. We read about it in our history. We watch it in our entertainment. Violence is part of our cultural memory in a way that most species cannot understand. Kiva thought about the Valkorians. They were warriors, yes, but they had been a spacefaring civilization for thousands of years. Their wars were controlled, ritualized, fought with rules and honor codes. The idea of the kind of desperate, savage conflict Jake was describing was alien to them. So when you removed your armor, Kiva said slowly, you were not taking a risk. You were removing a restriction. The armor is useful in certain situations, Jake said. But in that fight, I needed to move fast and adapt quickly. The armor would have slowed me down, so I took it off. And the weapons? You use such simple designs. Simple is reliable, Jake said. A kinetic rifle does not need a power cell. It does not need sophisticated electronics. It is metal and springs and chemistry. If I take care of it, it works every time. I trust it more than I would trust any energy weapon. Kiva understood now why the humans had adapted so well to the EMP attack. They had never fully trusted technology in the first place. They kept their equipment simple and mechanical because they knew that complicated systems could fail. When everyone else's advanced gear stopped working, the humans just shrugged and kept fighting. I want to learn, Kiva said suddenly. I want to understand how you fight, how you think. I have been a warrior my entire life, but I realize now that I have been a warrior who depends on technology. I want to be more than that. Jake studied her carefully. It will not be easy. The training is hard and the mindset is harder. You will have to learn to think of yourself as the weapon, not the tools you carry. I understand, Kiva said, or at least I am beginning to. Will you teach me? Jake considered this. I am not a teacher. I am just a soldier. You are more than that, Kiva said firmly. You showed us something important. Something we had forgotten in all our years of technological advancement. You showed us that the warrior matters more than the equipment. Before Jake could respond, Security Chief Darrow's voice came through the communication system. Lieutenant Morrison, please report to the main conference room. The Coalition Council wishes to speak with you. Jake acknowledged the message and turned to leave. Kiva followed him. What do you think they want? She asked. Probably to give me a medal and make speeches, Jake said. Politicians like that kind of thing. The conference room was crowded when they arrived. Representatives from dozens of species filled the space, all of them watching as Jake entered. At the center of the room stood the Coalition Council, the governing body that oversaw all member species. Council Leader Vorath, a wise old Saurine, stepped forward. Lieutenant Jake Morrison of Earth, you and your fellow humans have performed a great service for the Coalition. You defeated an enemy that threatened us all. For this, we wish to honor you. Jake stood at attention, uncomfortable with the attention but enduring it. Vorath continued, explaining that Jake and the other humans would receive the Star of Valor, the Coalition's highest military honor. There were speeches about courage and sacrifice and unity, but Jake noticed something else. He saw the way some representatives looked at him. There was respect, yes, but also something like fear. They had seen what humans could do when pushed. They had seen how quickly humans could transition from civilized diplomats to efficient killers. It made them nervous. After the ceremony, Jake returned to his quarters. Pete Crawford was there cleaning his rifle. "How was the medal ceremony?" Pete asked. "Boring," Jake said. "But the food was good," Pete laughed. "They are scared of us now, you know. All those advanced species with their fancy technology, and they are scared of a bunch of humans with metal armor and chemical weapons. Fear can be useful," Jake said. "It makes people careful." "True enough," Pete agreed. He finished cleaning his rifle and held it up to the light, checking the barrel. "You know what the funny thing is? We were not even trying to scare them. We were just doing our jobs." That was exactly the point, Jake thought. Humans had not been trying to prove anything. They had simply adapted to the situation and done what needed to be done. The fact that it impressed and frightened the other species was almost accidental. Over the following weeks, Jake noticed a change in how the Coalition treated Earth's delegation. There were more requests for military consultation, more interest in human combat training methods. Several species requested permission to send observers to Earth's military academies. There was also more wariness. Some species began to see humans as potentially dangerous. These were warriors who did not need advanced technology to be deadly, which meant they were dangerous at any level of development. It was a strategic concern that several council members raised in private meetings. Kiva kept her word and requested assignment to Earth. She wanted to learn from humans, to understand their approach to combat. Jake wrote a recommendation for her, noting her courage and adaptability during the battle. On his last day at Sentinel Prime, Jake stood once again in the observation deck, looking at the stars. His armor was packed and ready for transport. His weapons were cleaned and secured. He was going home, back to Earth, where he could be just another soldier again. Kiva found him there. "I received approval for my transfer," she said. "I will be on Earth in 2 months." "Good," Jake said. "Fair warning, though. The training is brutal." "I do not expect anything less," Kiva said. She hesitated, then asked one more question. "Do you think other species can learn to fight like humans? Or is it something unique to your people?" Jake thought about this carefully. Anyone can learn the techniques, the movements, the tactics, the strategies. Those can be taught. But the mindset, the willingness to operate without technological advantages, the comfort with violence that comes from our history, that is harder to teach. That is something you have to earn through experience. "Then I will earn it," Kiva said simply. Jake smiled slightly.